looked at than the after. So I look at it like as a business person, the FBI is probably not much different, and the assignation or assignment of resources in the 80s and 90s, and this is a guess, they probably had your new agent. Damn, I'm on the Gambino squad, or hey, I'm going after the West Side Genovese, right? Versus like now, like if you're on the mob squad, are you like on the Island of Misfit Toys? You know what I mean? Like, give me like where the top agents went mob wise in the 80s and 90s, and are the top agents working on the mob now, or are they kind of not? You know?
Yeah, well, I think you're exactly right. I mean, that was the place to be.
Yeah.
That and public corruption.
Yeah.
And then 9/11 hits, and the Misfit Toys were on the terrorism squads
Mm,
and the counterintelligence squads.
interesting.
That's the scary part, right? So nobody. How could you look at a 63-page memo that just says all these dudes could care less about taking off and landing? All they want to be able to do is steer the plane, and nobody says a fucking thing. And they're all Middle Easterners. I'm sorry, profiling. Oh, you shouldn't profile. Bullshit, bullshit. That's exactly what you should do, because that's traditionally that's what you pigeonholed yourself into. Period. And I could show you 5 million examples from overseas and from Guantanamo Bay. Trust me. So the way I look at it is that's where we were prior to. That's where we were different after. But organized crime, the true career agents in that area stayed level through that whole thing and maintained their relationships, because all of organized crime investigations come down to your source management.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky spot, right? And I heard on one of your podcasts, one of the dudes said, "Hey, we were, you weren't. It didn't matter. You weren't testifying against anybody, cop, anybody else. That was it. It was looked at. That was a punishable, offense for doing that. So you think about that being a great source handler. Those were the guys I used to go to as a new agent and say, teach me how to do this without hurting the guy, without hurting his family, and without hurting myself. How do I do this?"
Yeah.
And they'll show you and they'll tell you. And like I said, I play golf with a guy that you guys would know. I play with him a lot. He's a straight up dude. He's got it's like he's an old school guy, but he's not. He's a younger guy. He's an old school guy. The outside of his house, if you saw it, you'd be like, what a piece of shit.
Oh no! And then inside on marble.
Go
now.
inside.
That's how it is in Italy too, with the wise guys.
Absolutely. So he's an old school guy with a young heart. So I think that was what I saw in the bureau. Those career organized crime agents stayed steady, and they still are to this day. Might not be. We used to have 5 or 6 squads in the organized crime world. Now might be one, but I can guarantee you those guys are squared away dudes. And if I have questions to this day, that's where I'm going. Yep.
Now, can you talk about just? I kind of got it before the calls on the phone to IRS. So like I deal a little bit with government agencies, so like I get it. But talk about the 1/3. It kind of scares me, but I'm not surprised by kind of the 1/3 Fed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like anything else, right? Like the only place I didn't see that was at West Point.
Okay.
The only place I didn't see that was in combat units.
Yeah.
Everybody's ready to rock and roll. What you'd see there is shit hits the fan and bullets start flying, and the guys that you thought were going to run towards it back up a little bit, but they never run away, right? So you look at the bureau. There's guys that choose from the beginning. I'm going to be the guy who does the background checks and talks to the nominated judges about their background and go through the question, but don't ever ask me to run with a case. Now, if you need me to carry boxes, from the guy's house or boxes out of town hall, I'm in. But I got the fucking New York Times crossword puzzle to do. I got coffee at 8. I got gym at 9:30. I got lunch at 11:30. I got to comb my hair at 1. And then 4:00, listen, if you really need me, page me and I'll call you back in the morning.
You know what they call those guys, right? Section chief. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's about right. Yeah. You call. We've seen that example, haven't we? We've seen the leadership of the bureau. Yeah. And that's the other. Oh, I'll give you so by chance I ever get nominated to be the director of the FBI ever, which, will never happen because I know the guy who I want to be the director of the FBI. I want to be the two guy. I want to actually bring in an independent inspector general, because DOJ, Department of Justice, OIG, has their own inspector general, but that guy's so overwhelmed that they couldn't possibly work it out. In the bureau, if you had an inspector general that would just chop, chop, chop all those lazy pieces of shit,
Yeah.
that's my job. That's what I want. The director, there's a better looking guy who looks good in a suit. I look decent in a suit. He looks great in a suit. Let him go to Congress and talk about this guy would kill it. He's another West Point